Hi, I'm Sabine Franco. I help create businesses, protect properties, and plan legacies so you can be safe while you pursue your purpose. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about some interesting facts. Did you know that in New York State alone, there's $16.5 billion in unclaimed funds? So, what does that mean? That means that in an account in New York State, that there's $16.5 billion of money that belong to individuals, people like you, who died without an estate plan, who died without a legacy plan, and that money is just sitting there, basically. The assets that they worked hard for, day in and day out, that they built, and because they didn't plan for it, it's just sitting there. And that's just not for New York State, that's for all states. All states have some form of the same type of thing. It's an office where funds that weren't claimed or assets that weren't claimed because their loved ones didn't know about it, or they just made no plan for it, or either the loved ones couldn't get it because of some sort of red tape that went on in that person's life, or after that person's life, I should say. So I say that to say, it's really important for you to have a plan, or at least start to learn and understand about these things, because maybe even if it's not you, someone who you love, you may be in a position to receive an inheritance from, may just not know. And because people don't know, that's how a lot of this stuff happens. So over 55% of Americans in total don't have an estate plan, and that's why we see these large losses like this. So I went to highlight a story, which one of the many stories that I talk about, but this one, a lot of people know Prince. So Prince, Roger Nelson, Prince the artist, he died about 3 years ago, and his estate was worth over $200 million, and that's the hard assets that he had, money, intellectual property from his music, and other things, artwork, etc. His actual property where he lived, and so all of that stuff is part of that. And not only that, when somebody who's successful like Prince was, passes away, usually their assets are things that they own of value, right? Usually their assets appreciate, so it becomes even more valuable. Like I think the year that Michael Jackson died, his estate made like over $1 billion, and he wasn't even worth $1 billion when he died. So somebody like Prince, once he dies, his estate is going to be worth more. So part of the reason why I bring that up is because 3 years later, his estate is still not settled. That means that it's still open and nothing has really been resolved with that. So his family hasn't received any money. They haven't really valued how much it actually is worth at this point. But there are some people who have been making money off of his estate, and that's some lawyers have been making money off of his estate because he didn't have a plan. Now they have to constantly be going to court and dealing with the family who are fighting amongst themselves, and working on valuing these things that he owned. And not only that, when you die without putting somebody in charge, like an executor or a trustee or somebody who's going to actually deal with giving out or distributing the assets, now a professional company has to be hired, and they're going to charge a whole lot of money, especially given the size of the estate. So to date, 3 years later, $10 million has been spent in just legal fees on his estate, $10 million. And because also he didn't plan, now we're going to see that at least 40% of his estate is going to go to the federal government. Damn! Because, once it's actually valued, because he died without a plan. And when you have a plan, you can put in certain sort of protections so that you could avoid paying a certain amount of tax within, with your estate. So you could plan to avoid to pay tax legally. But because he had no plan, the maximum is going to happen, which is 40% off the top goes to the government. And then after that, his state, Minnesota, is going to get 16% of his estate. And so all of that just because there was no plan put in place. Now I know what you're thinking. You're probably like, I'm not Prince. I know I'm not Prince, but whatever you have is going to set your next generation up for an easier time than you had, or a leg up, or more success, because everybody knows it's better to start with something than nothing. And it allows, if you think about, if you've ever come across of people who are able to just like right out of college, purchase properties, or even before, or pay for college, or, start businesses because their family had money. And any little bit would actually, help your next generation, or maybe a cause that you are passionate about, get that much further. So like, think about Prince, he was very into his artwork, his art. And so, which is music. And so that money that he had, he could have set up a foundation. He could have set up some sort of nonprofit for people who are like him, who come from where he comes from, or maybe looks like him, to benefit from that type of training or that exposure or experiences, rather than just let all this money go to the government and lawyers and things like that, right? So making a plan basically helps you keep your money. It helps you transfer your money, helps you transfer your assets, even if you're not Prince, right? I was talking to a young lady about, she wanted to, plan for her child. And she's like, well, I don't have a lot now, but I know that, whatever it is I have, I want to leave for, my child. And I'm thinking, even if it's $10,000, like, it's better than you passing away and your child has nothing. $10,000 could be used to invest. It could be used to start a business. It could be used to do a lot of things. And so don't think modest about the value of what you own. Real estate, any pension accounts, retirement accounts, all those things are valuable, and all those things are important to plan for. So your estate is pretty much everything that you own when you pass away. So not only things that you own, but also your liabilities that you owe and your debt, etc. But we really talk about protecting the assets, the things that are of value, and minimizing either the tax or the debt when we talk about estate planning or legacy planning. But there's also something beyond that I wanted to highlight, and that's who you are, right? Your legacy is your essence, who you are, the mark that you want to make, with the life that you had. And a lot of times we don't think about the value of passing on the lessons that you learned to your family members, passing on your mistakes, your benefits, your wins, so that your family is not starting from scratch with all of the things that you have learned and experienced and accomplished, all of your hopes and dreams and desires for them, things that you want them to know when you're not here. So you also want to consider that. That's like a piece that you could never, that's like priceless, pretty much. Like, imagine knowing what your great-grandmother or your great-grandfather or your great-great-great, you know what I mean? Like, what was the mission of their life, and that would, add a lot of value to you, knowing where you're going, where you receive the baton from, and where you're going to take it to. So I just wanted to share that with you regarding estate planning and legacy planning. And and all of that kind of intertwines with asset protection. So if you're unsure on how to get started or where you even fall in line with any of this, I'm happy to sit down and talk to you. Let's set up a consultation and we can dig further on how you can create a legacy for you and your family. Again, I'm Sabine Franco, also known as Sabine the Purpose Lawyer. I help create businesses, protect properties, and plan legacies so you can be safe as you pursue your purpose.